Why do critics keep calling Bridgerton shallow when millions of women are obsessed with it? Today we're discussing if the critics were right in saying the series is lacking in substance, or we've just been trained to dismiss the things women actually enjoy. Since Bridgerton premiered during the pandemic, it's become a cultural phenomenon that transcends the typical period drama audience. The Netflix series now returns for its fourth season with a devoted fan base that devours every episode, dissects every moment, and creates art inspired by every frame. Yet mainstream critics remain skeptical, often reducing the show to frivolous romance when there's actually something much more interesting happening behind all those empire waist gowns and orchestral covers of pop songs. What Bridgerton is doing, whether critics acknowledge it or not, is centering a perspective on desire, pleasure, and female agency that has historically been absent from prestige television. To understand what makes Bridgerton matter, we need to talk about something film theorists call the female gaze. For decades, cinema has been dominated by what feminist critics identified as the male gaze, a way of filming and framing women as objects to be looked at, rather than people with their own inner lives. Women in traditional Hollywood films exist to be desired, rescued, or won by a male protagonist. The camera fragments them into sexy parts. They're beautiful and passive, and there to serve the story of a man. The female gaze is different. It's not just the reverse. It's not about making men into objects. Instead, it's about centering women as fully realized people with their own emotions, desires, and agency. It's about showing what women want, how women see themselves and other women, and what happens when we look at the world from a female point of view. Bridgerton does this relentlessly. Every season centers on a woman's emotional journey. The show asks what she wants, not what society expects of her. The camera lingers on female faces, not to fetishize, but to let us understand the complexity of what they're feeling. Here's what might surprise you. Shonda Rhimes, the show's creator, doesn't actually think Bridgerton is primarily a romance. When discussing the series, Rhimes explained that she views it as a workplace drama. The women in Regency society don't have power anywhere else in their lives. Not in business, not in politics, not in property ownership. So marriage becomes their workplace. It's the one arena where they have any agency or negotiating power at all. The drama, then, isn't about whether two people will kiss. It's about whether a woman can make a choice that honors both her desires and her survival. This reframing changes everything. When you watch Daphne navigate her marriage to Simon in season 1, you're not watching a fairy tale. You're watching a woman negotiate her own body and autonomy within a system that doesn't give her many options. When Penelope spends 3 seasons deciding whether she can marry Colin while maintaining her independence as Lady Whistledown in season 3, the tension isn't romantic, it's existential. Can she have love and selfhood, or does marriage demand she choose one? These are real questions that women face, even now. The show understands that romance doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens within power structures, within social obligation, within the very real constraints of a woman's life. That's not shallow, that's honest. If we're being real, there's a reason so many women watch Bridgerton while critics dismiss it. The show centers female pleasure and female desire in a way that mainstream media rarely does. The sex scenes are shot from a female perspective. We see the woman's face, her satisfaction, her active participation. We see men who are genuinely invested in female pleasure. They listen. They ask what their partners want. They look at women with tenderness and admiration. For women who've grown up watching a very different kind of media, where female desire is either invisible or presented as something to be ashamed of, this is remarkable. Bridgerton treats women's sexual enjoyment as normal, natural, and worthy of screen time. It refuses to apologize for showing women who want sex, who initiate sex, who have opinions about sex. It's almost radical in its simplicity, except we don't use that word anymore. Remember? Beyond the physical, the show centers emotional desire too. It asks what women want from partnership, from love, from their lives. The characters don't just fall into romance, they choose it, sometimes reluctantly, sometimes joyfully, always with full awareness of what they're sacrificing or gaining. Eloise wants intellectual freedom. Kate wants to protect her sister. Penelope wants independence. These are female desires that have nothing to do with landing a husband, and the show respects them. The problem with dismissing Bridgerton is that it requires dismissing the things women care about. Romance, pleasure, beauty, desire, emotional connection. These have historically been coded as frivolous precisely because women value them. Meanwhile, stories about men wanting things, fighting for things, pursuing things get called prestige television. The bias isn't in the show. It's in how we've learned to evaluate what matters. Critics also struggle because Bridgerton blends accessibility with ambition. It's fun and sexy and beautiful, yes, but it's also genuinely interested in questions about power, agency, identity, and how desire functions within social systems. It's not either or, it's both. And that both slash and quality seems to confuse people who want their prestige television to feel like medicine. Bridgerton works because it trusts women's perspectives and women's desires enough to center them on screen. It shows women thinking, feeling, choosing, and wanting, sometimes in direct conflict with what society expects. It's a show made by a woman, Shonda Rhimes, with a largely female creative team, and that matters. It shows in every frame. So yes, women love Bridgerton, not despite the romance, but because of it. Not despite the pleasure and beauty, but because of it. The show understands something that critics often forget. Centering what women want, how women see themselves, and what women experience isn't shallow. It's essential. This is Ladies First, watching women in movies. Here, we empower women by reviewing and discussing films that highlight their stories, struggles, and achievements. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.